When we last left off with the string of theories for the lore of Hytale, we just analysed the evil being and clear antagonist of the game, Varyn. His green oozing body and vibrantly purple void magic are both shrouded in mystery, things I don't think we'll truly find an answer to until later down the line. I'm more interested, however, in seeing what we can figure out by just looking at the pieces we've been given so far. More specifically, we're going to be taking a deep dive into Zone 3. This is the zone with the most prominent void activity so far, as we can see an entire cult of human civilization has been swept up in its chaotic flurry. What's more, they have a seriously strong connection to Varyn in more ways than one. Let's take a look this week on Hytale Thoery Talk. Welcome back to Kweebec Corner. My name's Connor, and today we finally sit down and take a step back to look at one of the biggest blog posts we got last year, the reveal of the Outlanders. Not only that, I want to explain to you why I think that these guys and these guys are the exact same thing, through some shady resurrection magic and a slight sprinkle of botched mutation. Trust me, it'll all make sense in the end. This video is sponsored by Server Pro. Server Pro has everything you need to host the next big Hytale server. With custom host names and support for modding and scripting, why not start your adventure today and grab a free Minecraft server that you can swap over once Hytale is launched. So, where to start? Well, where's better than the where, right? Zone 3 is aptly named Borea, and if you know anything about Hytale, you'll know that this is where you'll find snow. A lot of it. Along with fawns, rideable rams, wolves, polar bears, and even giant ice yetis. Yeah, pretty welcoming place, I know. And did I mention ice dragons? There's also ice dragons too. It was teased recently that the team have opted to have players begin in either of the first 3 zones, with tiered gameplay and scaled difficulty throughout. This means that Zone 3 could be your starting area, and so there's going to have to be just as much rich lore here as there is in all the other locations. Zone 1 has Trorks, Queebecs, the Temple of Gaia, even a corrupted void spider to contend with when not farming. Add on exploring hidden ruins and collecting whatever these things are, and you have quite a bit of content. So what about Zone 3? Well, Outlanders are not the sweet wood-loving Queebecs we've come to know and love. Far from it. Outlanders are actually human. They're a breakaway human faction that are defensive, territorial, and most importantly, hostile to all outsiders. They're the main foe of Zone 3 and will appear dotted around in various clans and encampments. We don't really know what these people look like as they wear carved wooden masks to hide their identity, be it for isolation or perhaps to hide a more sinister appearance we can only imagine. But it could also be related to the regional culture, as we've also seen fawns wearing these masks too. Fawns, of course, being the race I believe will have some form of tension or ongoing conflict with the Outlanders at the time of playing the game. The Outlanders all appear to be unusually pale of skin. The whiteness could be indicative of their cold climate, but it also suggests restricted or no blood flow, the person being a literal walking dead or possessed by some sort of voodoo. This is further backed up by their blog post description of being brutally pragmatic, with an unfeeling outlook. Unfeeling, emotionless, sounds a lot like an undead or soulless person if you ask me. While the idea that all of the Outlanders are actually just dead is a bit out there, it's not too far from what we've been hinted at in concepts. We know that deep Outlander encampments hold secret ritual sites with pools brimming with a purple substance. These are known as resurrection wells. They appear to be sources of their power and controlled by Outlander priests, the spiritual leaders, if you will, of the clans. These priests lead their fellows in strange rituals that cause glowing green fires, and if we begin to connect some dots here from across concepts and the blog post introduction, we can see that these rituals are called Outlander rites. Assumedly, the host is taken out to the hidden site and a sacrifice is performed whereby their heart is removed and replaced with a large green crystal, thus imbuing them with some form of temporary immortality. We can tell this by the scars seen on the cultist's chest, as well as the fact that all the other members of the clans appear to have this strange crystal, except for the priests themselves. I'm also hazarding a guess that the fire goes green either because of Varyn's sudden presence through void magic, or because they, throw the heart in there or something. And that made the fire go green? I don't know. The details of this are kind of foggy. But the reason for them being? Well, fighting for land, isolated for years, alone in the cold, seeking power or a connection to Varyn, what are you most likely to do? Probably start messing with magic. We've covered all too many times that the zones exhibit magical attributes or particular elements, with Boreas being water. If that's so, then it probably wasn't long before the original Outlanders started using this as a source of power. It being their naturally closest element, that makes sense, right? And with it, they were probably able to raise these huge ice walls to protect their encampments further from their human counterparts and even the native race of fawns. Priests, as these magic users were now dubbed, shot right up the hierarchy as the coolest kids in town. Of course, hardships and intolerable conditions, as told in the blog post, sadly led them to explore darker forms of magic, a measure of mastery over death itself, wielded from the mystical waters of the zone. We don't know the exact amount of time Varyn has been around, or the prolonged effect his presence has had on the races and zones of Orbis, but we know that all others unanimously disagreed with some fundamental perspective of the Outlanders. Be this the very nature of their worship of Varyn, or perhaps their practices of void magic, or even their devotion to finding immortality and power, we know that the Outlander priests in particular are very fond of this dark voodoo stuff, and were perhaps even lured by waters already tainted by Varyn's void magic. Because of this, they split off from the rest of human civilization, battling to secure their own territory and lands within Borea. As a result, many ancient battlegrounds now lie dormant from prior wars frequented by those same priests. But why would you visit a battleground, you may ask? Right. Well, remember those skulls on the battleground? Well, Outlander priests seem to really love skulls. Skulls here, skulls there, and skulls have a very strong connection to death. Death, opposite of light, void, Varyn, opposite of Gaia. It kinda makes sense. It may be that the skulls or bones are a key or component to practicing void magic. Assuming these guys already knew how to perform some of this forbidden magic, it may be that they now have chosen to combine it with their newfound water abilities to create something entirely new. Void does seem to be able to corrupt water in a way that we haven't quite seen with anything else yet, so I'm going to call this Void Water, and this is what I think is in those resurrection wells as well as the strange glowing pot in this image here. Void Water would have the properties of healing or maintaining the imminent decay of a life form. If applied correctly, it can cause mutations of great strength, however incorrectly overusing may result in a complete loss of identity as you slowly warp into an unrecognizable beast. You can see why you may want to avoid it, but if rendered immortal by void magic, it could be that any Outlander that has gone through the ritual now needs to return to these resurrection pools to sustain their life, thus making them trapped in an endless cycle, perhaps even tricked by their own trusted priests when promised unlimited power. We've seen this effect take place on the weary Outlander here, as well as the giant Colossus whose arm is completely covered by red scars, the fingers changing into overgrown claws. His body also seems to be far bulkier, unnaturally towering. Now, you may be thinking, what is this all building up to? Well, what if we've seen the results of these rituals before? Failed results. Enter the Crawlers. These guys are everywhere, packed together in dense caverns or sprawling across the surface along with Void Eyes and various other spawn of Varyn. But something about these guys got me thinking. Varyn has brought with him countless void creatures, heck, even void dragons. But, hold on a second. Haven't we also seen a dragon somewhere else before? The Ice Dragon is a very real and prominent creature in this world, so we can't say that all these void creatures are alien. In fact, the Void Dragon almost looks possessed, warped, as if it was raised from the dead or corrupted from this very world. So what if the Crawlers are exactly the same? Cultists have a strikingly similar appearance to Crawlers, and the claws of the Crawlers look awfully similar to the mutated claws of the Colossus. Also donning a similar reddish fleshy colour, their half-missing torso, their humanoid structure, pale skin, green eyes, even the shafted nose looks like imprints from the metal casings that are worn by the cultists. The Outlander Colossus, as established, is a product of serious mutations and beef-ups. They even said in the blog post that he'd been working out, so perhaps he wasn't just taking a dip in a resurrection pool, maybe he was literally the only one that worked out. The rest of the failed mutations tossed to the wayside, left to become the army of Varyn. When the rite goes bad, the host eyes may turn from the glowing green squares to a diamond shape, like Varyn's logo, symbolizing that he has now taken control, and causes them to mutate adversely. And due to the fact that there's so many Crawlers, it shows that these priests aren't perfect. It seems meddling with the Void has even negatively impacted them too. The Void Water can apparently be used for alchemy, and this too will start to morph and mutate the users. None of them truly know what they're dealing with. With their addiction to water magic so strong, perhaps even when polluted, these priests continue to use it, and of course, with their unwavering desire for immortality, power, their connection to Varyn was born. Priests then continued to mix the water with the void behind the scenes, slowly corrupting the rest of their clan, fueling a new religion of worship and sacrifice. Imagine if the heaps of Crawlers we find in the caves are just failed experiments, versions of the Colossus with arms that didn't come out right, or perhaps the water itself decayed the body. Think about this, void as a substance appears to cause decay, and so, standing in an entire pool of it? What do you reckon that's going to do for you? What if the cultists took a dip in it for too long, thus causing the entire bottom half of their body to be decayed and withered away? A price for meddling with death. Perhaps the lengthy bathe was to encourage the appearance of a third eye. Think about it, Outlander warriors and the Colossus, the members of the clan that show the most promise in physical prowess, don a third eye that appears as the symbol of Varyn. I still don't fully understand what this means, but maybe this is why the cultists are covered with a metallic case that suppresses their sight. Somehow, they're still able to see, or sense somewhat. Perhaps this is to help force the mutation of a third eye that comes through in the stronger ranks. One thing's for sure, Outlanders still need to eat, it appears though, as we know rangers will hunt wild boar. Unless they're doing this defensively or just for fun remains to be seen though, as dead people probably won't need to eat. It may be that the animals are used in the process of the ritual for a sacrifice, maybe even fusing animal parts with the user to make them stronger or larger in size. Either way, that's all we know so far. These outcast humans, abandoned by society, following some sort of idealistic notion, eventually ended up intoxicating themselves with their own magic and lust for never-ending life. Now strife with curses and mutations, they fight amongst themselves as the strongest are wielded by Varyn for his true army. But that's just a theory. A Hytale No, I promised myself I wasn't going to do that. As always, thanks for watching Kweebec Corner, stay safe and keep free.